Welcome to the Whole Leader podcast, a space for leaders seeking something deeper than success. I'm Richard Britton. After years of building businesses, I found myself looking for something more meaningful than growth alone. This podcast invites you to explore the work of leading in a complex world, with conversations that delve into the inner and outer work of presence, connection, creativity, and human-centered leadership. Thank you for joining. Today's guest is someone whose work lives at the intersection of presence, relationship, and leadership. John Thompson is the co-founder of Transformational Connection and a pioneer in relational and embodied facilitation. His journey has taken him from directing a high-performance tennis academy to founding a humanitarian project in Delhi to becoming a global teacher of embodied leadership and deep human connection. Through his development of the 5 principles of surrender leadership and the training programs offered through Transformational Connection, John invites leaders to move beyond control and into trust, beyond strategy and into presence. In today's conversation, we'll explore that journey and what it means to lead, relate, and live more fully in our bodies, in relationship, and in this moment. John, welcome. It's really great to have you here.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Perhaps for our listeners, you'd like to give your own introduction as well and say a few words.
Well, yeah, I like kind of thinking back to when I was running a tennis academy and running that project in Delhi and now the work I do. And they do feel like the 3 kind of major strands of my work over the last 20 years. And I've had a big passion for that time of around how humans can grow and develop and how we can liberate ourselves and become more embodied. And so I'm excited to talk about all of this and to be here with you.
I'm really looking forward to hearing about all of those things. Perhaps let's start then. So you mentioned already that you ran an elite training academy for tennis. And if I've understood it, with a certain difference that it really promoted presence as well as skill. And I'd love to hear your story about being involved in that and the work that you did.
Yeah, my kind of aim was to run a tennis academy that, worked with presence and focused on developing the person as well as the player, and to show like how much good could come through sport for people, but also to try and show that actually produced more and better players as well. So that was my aim with that. And we actually did mindfulness practices with all the children. This was before mindfulness was a thing. So we were calling it relaxation training or presence training or awareness training, but we had the kids doing that. And we actually did life coaching with the parents of the athletes to help them create a more supportive environment for their children, for them to do better. Mm-hmm. And that particular part of the whole academy was probably the most exciting because it really opened parents' eyes as to how they could better support their kids and actually got parents into their own kind of personal development journey that maybe was new for them.
It's a pretty tough gig, I think, being a young person playing tennis to a high level and then having parents that have to travel with you and put life on hold to do it. I can imagine that there's a huge need for mindfulness practices and helping people cope with that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Because parents would be, bringing their children to the academy 5 or 6 times a week, spending a lot of money, watching them on the weekend. So they're making all kinds of commitment. But then also, unfortunately, they would often, one of their kid would make a mistake and then they would like scream from the balcony down at them. And like I would see good work done between myself and the child, and then that can just be undone if the parent suddenly sends a different message and is completely critical. I mean, sometimes it was really bad scenes actually. But I can feel for the parent because they're investing so much, and it's an emotional sport. Their child's down there. So I don't want to blame the parents in any way. It was like, what can we do to support them in this, challenging environment? And it was special to work with people like that. And
you see it when you watch, I'm sure you do, sort of elite tennis, and then there's stories sort of the Williams sisters. Their dad was sort of notoriously very, very tough and sort of driving them hard. And I imagine any youngsters that are getting towards the top have got parents like that. But then you brought a new dimension to it with teaching them mindfulness and presence. And actually, in the last 10 years or so, you've heard about lots of top athletes talking about the fact that they will practice meditation, that they'll have practices that they take part in before the games to help them perform better, I think. Is that right?
Yeah. It's definitely become more mainstream now.
Yeah. And so while you were doing that, what did you learn yourself about handling pressure and helping sort of develop those skills of embodying better practices?
Yeah, well, that's where it all started, really, was my own tantrums on the tennis court as a player. Not that I was especially temperamental, but it was more like how much it would bother me when I didn't perform well when I most wanted to. Like, that would just destroy my soul. I mean, that's maybe a bit strong, but it really, from my late teens until my kind of mid-30s, I was on a mission to like, why does this happen? Like, why sometimes when it most matters does my performance go down? And like, this is... And when I started coaching, I was able to help other people before I could help myself.
Really?
Actually, yeah. It was amazing to see people with similar kind of challenges and struggles and working with them in all different ways and seeing kind of gains in them. And that would help me learn of like, what might be going on here? And it took me a long time of doing all kinds of things to try and help myself. But it a lot of it was just like realizing the deeper things that are going on in me. So a lot of it was about actually not wanting to take too much space. So the actual amount of passion that would come through me and the kind of warrior spirit that was in me, part of me didn't want to become that visible. Like, it didn't fit with my identity somehow. And it was only as I kind of learned that it was okay to be so emotionally impacted by these things, and it was all right to take space, and like facing some of the fears from the past about when I had taken space and things hadn't gone well. As I started to do that, I started to find myself playing amazing tennis at certain times, like when it most mattered. But that really took kind of 10 or 15 years of
to
work.
To learn how to get into that flow state and to bring it all out.
And I would have glimpses of that earlier. Like when I first started doing mindfulness, I would have glimpses of flow states, and that kind of, like, wow, I haven't experienced that in 10 years of competitive tennis. But then to kind of anchor that more as like my norm. I mean, there's still always work to do. I can still have, but to anchor that more as my norm kind of took deeper work over the years, deeper like coaching, being coached myself, even therapeutic work, mindfulness. Yeah.
And at some point on that journey, you decided to spend some time in India. Is that right? And was that part of your mindfulness journey?
Yeah, that's where I first learned meditation. That was one of my reasons for going there, was kind of wanting to learn. I'd read about emotional intelligence, and then their follow-up book was where they put lots of Buddhist meditators under scientific conditions and showed all these amazing things they could do with their mind. So I wanted to learn that out in India, but I also wanted to do volunteer work and kind of contribute when I was there.
we talked about that briefly, in my introduction, and you spent some time in Delhi and you set up some humanitarian work there. You were looking after street children.
Yeah. It was actually within a charity that was already working with street children that I really liked. And then I set up a project within that for street children to actually guide people on a walk around Delhi.
Oh, wow.
Where they would tell their stories of what it was like when they were on the streets. But then also tell their story of how they had come into this charity and kind of been rehabilitated, and to give people an idea of what it's like there, but also like the story of possibility of how people can change.
And I'd be really interested to hear what drew you into that project and that work, because that sounds a million miles away from playing top tennis and sort of trying to develop your mind and body skills on a court.
Yeah, it was a period of kind of moving away from. It was the first time I quit being a tennis coach. I wanted to do something that felt more meaningful at the time. I wanted to make more of a difference in a way. And I liked working with kids. I was good at working with kids from having done tennis coaching. And yeah, something just touched me about street kids. There was 100, there probably still is, but there was like 100 children arrive at the New Delhi railway station each day who have run away from home or got lost. And
goodness,
they either get met by a pimp, or they find their way somewhere, or they meet someone from the charity. And it just felt really meaningful, powerful work. Yeah.
And having spent time in Delhi and come across these children myself, it's easy to fill you with a sense of complete hopelessness, really, isn't it? Because the problem seems so vast, but you stepped in and actually did something about it. So to imagine was very fulfilling. What did you learn through sort of connecting with those children and what they were doing?
What I found with volunteer work, because I did something similar in Brazil, like I go there with the intention to volunteer and support, and I do that, but I also feel like I pick up so many gifts from them and from their culture. And like even being, I think like the norm then with kids was that they hold on to your hand while they're talking. And there was some way that through like, and people just, even the men, they just hold physical contact longer.
Yeah.
And there was something in that, like I was quite English, we don't touch each other much. I wouldn't really hug anyone. Yeah. And there was something where I just started to get more used to being in physical contact with people, something so simple.
A simple, basic human connection.
Yeah. The street kids were kind of teaching me. They were more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was their spirit, like that's the stuff they had been through. And there was some, and this is in the great religions from India, within Hinduism, Buddhism, like this sense of acceptance. And it put things in perspective so much that the level of acceptance they had with so little did blow my mind and did kind of link to this, like just starting to meditate there, and this idea of like, oh, we can bring more acceptance to what's happening from each moment to the next. Like that was, I could see it in the people there, and it was just making sense of like, God, I give myself a hard time, and I'm giving myself such a hard time. I don't even know what's really happening. And I'm quite in my mind, like, so I really learned a lot. And that's what the project I set up, it wasn't just about supporting them, which it was about showing people like this inspiring story of survival and almost like rags to riches.
It sounds like for those young people that they kind of operated with real dignity. They were taking on, you mentioned the street tour projects, and they were helping you even inadvertently, not by design. And there's a real kind of dignity and something beautiful about that. And perhaps those things come through because they don't have the same expectations as sort of the Western mind, the sort of the way we'd be expected to operate culturally in this country.
I think it's a double-edged sword, because there's a beautiful thing about acceptance, which is bigger in their culture than in ours. the downside of that is like the caste system where it's like people don't expect change. It's like, so you just accept your lot and you don't.
Right.
So part of what I wanted to show Indian people there was that, hey, this street child who was on the streets is now being rehabilitated. They're now speaking perfect English to you. And some of them went on to like become a famous photographer and a karate teacher. And I wanted to break that idea that people can't change and grow as well.
Sometime after you had worked in that project, you started to get involved in, I suppose, in some of the practices which would be more familiar with the work that you do now, working with groups of people, understanding the relationships, the relational experience between them, and the connection there. Maybe you could talk to me more about the beginnings of learning about those practices.
Because I'd learned to meditate and I was into coaching already, and I'd done a bit of therapy, and been to personal development workshops. And then I discovered these other practices, and they were more about connection and about being present together with other people. So it was like where you're mindful by yourself, it would be, can you extend that mindfulness into a connection with another person? And when you're with them, and can we together be mindful of what it's like being together?
And this topic seems to be less well explored, or certainly from my own perspective, having, experience of meditation and actually mindfulness as a topic which is pretty mainstream, and lots of people practice it. But what you're talking about there seems a bit different and maybe a bit off-piste, actually. It's not something that you hear so much about.
Right. And for me, it stood out at the time as like, oh, this is the next step. Like, this makes perfect sense. Why would you do mindfulness just by yourself on a cushion when you can, like, nothing wrong with that, but why not do that, like, in the heat of the moment in a connection with someone else? And the amount you can learn about yourself when you start to do that with someone else, and the profound experiences that can come. Maybe
for our listeners, you could tell us about the first time you did that then, and what that was like.
It was. I did it with my best friend, who we now run the company together with, and we had just heard about. By this time, we hadn't been to any formal workshops, but we just had heard about the practice, and it made sense to us. So we sat down to do it, and initially it involved eye contact. So we started doing that. And at first we were like, felt so awkward, and we're like, why do we have to do this? And then we started laughing. And the practice simply was like, pretty much look each other in the eye and only say something if it feels deeply meaningful to speak. So at first, as I say, it was awkwardness, laughter. And then we kind of dropped in to something, and it was like, oh, we suddenly like got super present. And then it started to almost get psychedelic. Like, it was like, what's... So and we hadn't said anything then, but we were both smiling because we could feel we were both experiencing this kind of like almost altered state together.
There was an energy between you.
Yeah. And then, and then we started to speak more, and then it just like places came from my intuition. It didn't really make sense at the time, but it helped Sean suddenly have realizations from his past, from it, like he had totally forgotten of like, oh my God, that thing happened to me. And that's why this is happening to me now. And it was like a really profound realization for him.
So you're sort of talking about tapping into a different way of communicating that's off the beaten track, off grid. People in our everyday lives don't have an appreciation of.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of innate to us all. Like, it's somehow we know it, but it wasn't our norm. And by the end of it, we felt like we had done amazing meditation. We felt like we had crazy realizations about ourselves, but then we also felt more connected, and we had this sense of like, oh, connection, like it's a real visceral thing between us, and it's actually quite pivotal, like in relation to everything else.
Sounds like it really changed your understanding of human interactions.
It did, yeah. And it started to give us some keys of how we could create that experience more and more.
And what comes to mind for me is, that we hear about all the time the mental health crisis. We see sort of mindfulness being plugged more and more, but we hear about people being isolated and feeling, digital isolation and being abstracted from the world and not feeling connected to people. Why do you think people crave the sort of connections that you offer them through transformational connection today? What is it that's bringing people to do it? And I'm not trying to prime your answer because I gave a couple of thoughts there, but I'm sure you'll be able to give me a much more complete view.
Yeah, I think there's a number of reasons. I think for me, that for both of us, I think the initial pull was that psychedelic feeling of like, hang on, there's something more real. This like life became more vivid or something, of like, oh, we need to listen to this. There's even spiritual like experiences, or just what people call transpersonal experiences,
Mm-hmm.
now that psychedelics are kind of more mainstream in their benefits. So it was like, oh, we're experiencing different things that blow our minds. Not every time, but just occasionally,
Mm-hmm.
and that drew us. But then the other thing was, like, this seems a more powerful modality for creating change within us than anything else we had done. And yet, paradoxically, when it's about our wholeness, we're not actually trying to change ourselves. We're not like a problem that needs to be fixed to really get from A to B.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we realize more of our innate wholeness through that, and we end up feeling more ourselves and more connected with other people, and like a genuine connection that where there's a trust and where there's a sense of like, oh wow, we could create things together, or like there's a deep respect and even reverence at times.
A reconnection with something that you or the other people participating what was not sure was there, and then find it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like in a way it's like coming home, but you didn't know you had left it, or it's not. It's innate to us, but yeah, I just hadn't experienced that kind of togetherness.
When we ask ourselves why people are craving more connection, perhaps it's because there's a part of them that's not tapped into.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like that's an important signal of like, hey, what's possible? But connection it's like, in a way, it's our greatest desire, and the greatest opportunities are there, but it also comes with fears. And
yes.
Like, we can get hurt when we're more connected with people, and so it's tender territory.
So you began this journey, you began to learn these practices, you and your business partner realized that there was something quite special there, and that's become a business, that's become an offering to other people, which, as I've understood it, sort of started with small groups, but now Transformational Connection has become something international as well. So what's it been like to see these communities go from, small kind of living room projects into something that spans different country boundaries now?
Yeah, quite incredible. Like, just you saying it now makes me kind of realize that. Because at first it was just me and my friend doing these things that weren't very well known. We'd do it in a house in Shrewsbury at the time. I remember like doing it together and thinking, oh, this maybe is rubbish. And like, it was a cold day in December and we spent all day doing it. Like, why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And then something right at the end just happened and we were like, this is why. Wow, this is why. Because we ended up quitting the tennis academy and the parents in sport. Like, we had huge funding to like take that coaching program for the parents countrywide across different sports. But we felt in these practices, there was actually something more potent. So we took the risk to start an organization, and it did kind of spread like wildfire.
And so is that an act of surrender itself?
Yeah.
We've talked about surrender leadership. That was, you had a good business, a good thing going on with, coaching parents how to raise tennis stars, and you just shelved all of that and followed something more intuitive. And so that was an act of surrender.
Yeah, it was actually in an office not too far from here. I think the organization was First Sport, I forget, but they had got as government funding to basically take that parents coaching model. It was actually international and across sports.
Goodness.
Because no other coaches had solved what they would call as the parent problem.
Mm-hmm.
Parents are getting in the way of the athletes. And
yes.
So we had a working solution to that, and they secured government funding, and we're in an office talking with them, and I felt myself going flat as we were getting close to making, and it was really embarrassing. And I was like, look, I know this was the plan, but I'm going to have to get back to you. I just feel really flat, and I don't know why. And when we went away, we just said yeah, we're going to have to follow this other thread. And we had no idea if we could make a living from it. It was still early days with it. So it was a deep surrender, but it was like the universe responded.
If we can explore just for a minute what you said there, which is that when this, someone was ready to write a big check for your business, you felt something inside go flat and you made a different choice. I'd like to explore that a bit, because this is the point about embodiment and listening to your body and using that as part of the way that you lead. Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, I don't think it was just the big check, but there was just something of and I was just learning to kind of trust myself more deeply on an embodied level.
Yeah.
In the past, I might have pushed through that and pushed over it, and I dared just kind of surrender to I feel flat.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, and I'm sorry, because we're kind of here to sign the contract, and I need to go away, and everything looks great on paper. I've got no complaints about it. So it did feel like a surrender of some kind. And then what happened with the kind of organization almost setting on fire the following years, growing very quickly, it felt like a kind of gift for taking that risk. Yeah.
And within that, you'd noticed this kind of this difference between what your rational mind was saying about how to act in this situation for your work and what your body was screaming, which is no. And that's sort of part of I think the practices we're going to go on and talk about a bit more, and the work that you do now. So what is it that leaders need to be doing and how are you helping leaders to sort of listen more to their bodies? Because having total alignment between, heart and soul and mind and so on, can take it to a different level, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're going to connect more to what's truly purposeful to you. You're going to connect to what's truly your genuine inspiration, in spirit. And that is going to fuel your work, and it's going to, if you're a leader of other people, then obviously your ability to inspire is critical to that. So it's the deeper connection you have to yourself, the more you can inspire others. Simple as that.
That probably brings us on to sort of the leadership model that you've been working on, that you developed around this time, because you've been working with individuals, but also with businesses. And you have to tell me, there's the 5 principles. Is it the 5 principles? Is it of transformational connection or surrender leadership?
Mm-hmm. It can work for both of those.
Yeah, and maybe you could tell me what the 5 principles are.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the first one is a bit off the back of what I said, of learning to trust your experience. It's actually amazing, and I see this in workshops all the time. It's amazing how much we don't trust things that are arising, especially in our bodies. We don't realize the wisdom that's maybe not immediately obvious, but learning to trust ourselves, even if later we kind of feel like we kind of learn that was wrong in some way. It's just worth going with who we actually are and daring to step in to who we are. and the amount of wisdom that is within us, like my intuition now, the things that I pick up from people when I'm working with them is unimaginable compared to how it used to be. And it's not that I didn't have that capacity, it's just that I wasn't using it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't trust that. I was very much a rational person in my mind the whole time. So the more we can learn to trust ourselves, the more we can actually tap into our gifts and serve each other.
Is this what people talk about, trusting their gut instinct and going with that? I mean,
yeah. That's and there's complexities to it because there's different centers. There's the gut, there's the heart, there's mind, there's everywhere. Like even in our legs, there's information about what's happening, and so the more we can integrate, and not against the mind as well, but the more we can integrate what's happening in us, the more wisdom we have. And that's the second principle is staying with the level of sensation. So it's trying to pay attention to, like you would if you're being mindful, you're actually noticing what's alive in me now. Like what do I sense? What do I feel? And trying to just pay attention to that and include that in who we are. Yeah. The next one is commitment to connection.
Mm-hmm.
So it's how much can you honor yourself, but honor the other person, and try and like stay in with multiple truths. And then, even beyond that, like if you're in a group, like how much can you honor yourself and others without making them wrong, without making yourself wrong, and kind of holding the tension of connection maybe more than you would normally do, and see where that takes you.
Could you give me an example of that? Because it's the first two I understood well. That one I can get the edges of it, but I couldn't say I totally understood.
Yeah, well, that practice that me and my friend did initially, that was a bit of an example of like, can we lean into eye contact together and actually stay with what happens in both of us and speak to it when it feels meaningful. So we're actually kind of staying and trusting in the connection itself more than we might do normally, and trusting that will kind of inform us and shape us in good ways. Obviously, we need boundaries, and it's not doing that in any way. But for us, it kind of steers us into the potential that's there in a connection, and to, we can go directly into that,
mm-hmm.
Rather than avoid.
So on the flip side of that, why do people back away from these kind of connections? If you're working in a team, if you've got a leader, where does the dismissiveness come from, or the choice to kind of step back from being open, being connected, being vulnerable with a colleague come from?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I guess it's normally because of what's being touched in us starts to become too challenging for us, or we're scared of what might happen if we stay there in the connection with the other person. Maybe scared of what they might do, or scared of what we might do. And there is this deep opportunity to enter into this space of deeper connection. And that's as me and my friend did it more together. Like I started to discover more anger in me towards him. And at first I was like I don't want to be angry with my friend. And I realized part of my reason for being in my head a lot was because I'm avoiding that anger.
Mm-hmm.
But as I learned to bring it in a kind of skillful way, and he actually started getting angry with me for not bringing my anger. And as I did it, it contained all kinds of clarity. It was actually super useful for him, what was in my anger. And that started me learning to trust more of what was going on in me. So often by committing to the connection, we can, even though we might have to face some scary things on the way, like on the other side of that is often a lot of gold.
Because, societally, we've been taught anger bad. Don't go there. Don't get angry with somebody. It's this idea of negative emotions and positive emotions, I think is what you're touching on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And of course there's nuance with that, but there's so much power and clarity and aliveness in anger if it's skillfully integrated.
And used to convey what it needs to convey without it just kind of it exploding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that commitment to connection is where you're honoring the other person as well. So in that way, it wouldn't be violent. It would be, if there is anger, it would, it would be with eye contact. It would be with connection. It would be caring about how they're impacted by it.
Yeah. Bringing it back to sport for a moment, what comes to mind is watching some elite tennis from time to time, and you can see where maybe a line call's been against somebody and they're really angry about it, and they turn that not into the shouting and bawling, but actually into some extraordinary tennis. It's that sort of channeling.
Yeah. And it actually reminds me of when I applied this on the tennis court for myself. Like, it was actually after I would miss a really bad shot, I would typically just hide from everyone there. And what I learned to do was oh no, I'm going to use, even though this is a difficult place to connect, I would actually connect with the crowd and say something like, well, that wasn't the best shot, was it? Or something like that. And that would keep me in flow. Because it's that kind of acceptance and that connectivity. And that helped me get over things quicker.
Yes, because you're acknowledging it and sort of letting it out
and actually staying in connection.
Yeah. So we probably covered 3 of the principles now.
The 4th one is being with the other in their world. And this is less one that you would try and do all the time, but it's actually something we get people practicing quite a lot in our workshops, where we're with someone and we're not trying to get anywhere with them. We're not trying to coach them or something. We're actually just trying to be with them in the moment where they are and actually get deeply what it's like to be them in the moment. And this is what struck me about these modalities, is having done a lot of coaching where it's A to B. This is about presence. It's about being with them in their world here and now. And someone might say oh, I'm a little sad. And then it would be, well, what's the sadness like? Is it more like grief, or is it more like this? So you're not trying to fix them or advise them.
Is this empathy? It's
empathy, but it's also presence. So it's I might let them know how I'm being impacted by them. Maybe, oh, when you say you feel sad, I actually feel something opening in me. I feel more connected with you.
There's a sincerity and probably a vulnerability to being that way, which, if it happens anywhere, normally would only happen in sort of very close relationships. And so bringing that openness to a team or work colleagues is a big shift.
Yeah, and it can be a real gift. One thing that this principle trains is our attention, just to notice the smaller things that can happen between us. So it could be that with a colleague, we actually noticed that their body language shifted a little bit after what we said in a way that wouldn't normally be noticed. And then we say, oh, I noticed that, your arms came in closer. What happened? Was there something I said that upset you? And that kind of attention, I think it's like a plant and water. It's we all actually like attention that's open and actually interested in what's there and spacious.
And so when people can be this way together, what sort of positives does that start to draw out in that connection or the group?
Yeah, well, I had some really strong experiences with this early on when people were practicing being that way with me. And one of them was in a circle with 8 people, and the leader was being that way with me and kind of leading the group into being that way with me. And I was feeling a bit of anxiety, and he started asking me about the anxiety. And normally anxiety, that would kind of make me want to hide. But there was something about starting to describe it, that as I described it, it started to turn morph from anxiety into excitement. And I was like, wow, it's like alchemy started to happen. And then I started to get really passionate, and it was like, oh, my anxiety is actually kind of my aliveness that's just waiting in the background and that was an opening for me with tennis as well, of like, oh, in my anxiety is actually, it's kind of like fuel for something. Like if I can open to this, if I can connect from this, then wow, I can be, and I would enter the flow state from that.
A lot of the emotions and feelings that we're taught to suppress or push down, like anxiety, if they're given their space, actually can have a positive impact, can create better flow, better energy for the individual in the group.
Exactly. And learning, that was a big thing of learning to be like, don't make my anxiety wrong. So if I was on the tennis court and starting to feel nervous when it's getting to a key point, my problem earlier was like, oh, I'm getting nervous. Like, oh, why can't I just be more relaxed? Or so I'm in a negative spiral. Whereas after that, I was learning to be present to it, which was intense because my whole body's fully adrenalized and it's not easy. But if I can stay present with it, then I did things on a court I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, where did that come from? Yeah. And I also had a circle similar to that where someone kind of asked me like, oh, it was at a time just before we came out with this organization, and I was a bit like, oh, I feel I've got something to offer, but I don't know how to bring it. And people just started, first of all, they started mirroring to me that they thought they sensed a leader in me. And I was like, what? And they kind of predicted what happened with this movement around what we did. Like there's me stepping into a leadership role and taking it around the world, essentially. And it felt like they started to pick up on this energy before I could even sense it.
Really?
And then one of them even said, like, what have you got to offer? And at the time, it was like the most confronting question I could hear. It's like, oh, in front of a group of people, I've got to try and say what I can. And
Sure.
But what happened, he was like smiling when he asked me. And it was like these qualities just arrived in me. I didn't think them up. It was like I started to feel love and connection with him. So I said, oh, love and connection. And then I started to feel like this deep presence in myself. And I was like, oh, presence. And it was like these gifts arrived and it kind of felt sacred to me, like almost like a ritual. Like it felt like some kind of ancient ritual. But it was just because we had started to really be present together and do these practices to pay enough attention to each other and care.
Sounds, from what I've heard, like it was very, very much affirming for you and gave you courage and confidence as these feelings kind of flowed. And that wouldn't have happened without these practices with this other person in particular asking those questions.
I've got one more example. This was when I had started leading this practice myself of where we're being with the other in their world. And it was with a woman who had a very tough life. And we were being with her and we started to notice her kind of tone of voice. And then the way that she was breathing was quite short and sharp. And we just reflected that back, not with like trying to make her breathe more deeply. We just said, oh, is it a bit like this? Like if I imagine breathing like that with that voice, it's like I'm trying to get out of something. And she just like felt deeply seen. And that's what happens when we do this well. And then she just kind of went silent for 30 seconds to a minute. And then she started breathing deep relaxation breaths. And it was for the first time in her life that she realized she had always been in that kind of uptight thing. And obviously that's quite rare. She had quite a traumatic history. But to see someone like breathing, and the whole group just stayed with her for like 5 minutes as she's just breathing, and people just started crying because we're realizing this is the first time she's breathed in a way where she feels fully safe with other people.
And so something really fundamental had shifted for her.
Right.
And the energy of the group helped her.
Exactly.
Yeah. And by staying connected with her, that was a gift to her to help her on her journey.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet we hadn't encouraged her to breathe more.
Yeah.
We were just being with her in her world.
Yeah. I think there's probably one more.
There is one more.
Yeah.
I was worried I couldn't remember for a second, but I really like this one. It's called Owning Your Experience. And this is about taking responsibility for what it is that you're experiencing and trying to not put it on others. Like, and trying to like, what can you say is unarguably true, basically, about your experience? So now if I do it, there's some heat in my face. There's a little bit of shakiness. So if someone started to say, no, that's not true, it's like, I could feel it. So it's trying to communicate from that unarguable place rather than like making assessments about other people that could be argued. It's like, and this can be really powerful if you're in an argument or something and you feel yourself, and often it's something like fear, like, oh, I notice the way you're speaking to me, I'm starting to feel fear now. And if you own that fully, it often completely diffuses the conflict. And it feels like you're getting truth. Like there's so many, it's not propositional knowing that can be argued. It's like, this is real embodied truth. And if more of us in the room can bring this in, like, again, like humans just know, like we can take it in and we can update with this information.
Yes.
And if we can take responsibility for what's going on in us, we can actually have really hard conversations and them go well. I mean, there's always going to be big human challenges, obviously, but it was an amazing tool for me of like, oh, it's so easy for me to communicate in a subtly passive aggressive way, or and this is a way to just bring it back to what's owned in me. Yeah.
Because it's about you, it's what you're experiencing, it's what you're feeling. And so it's indisputable, and it's not putting anything onto somebody else and making that their problem, their thing, which they may have a totally different view and be very unhappy about. And then you're inflaming a difficult situation.
Right.
As you bring these principles to a workplace, to a team or a boardroom, what is it that what can happen when you bring these things to a team in a workplace?
Yeah, I think the best way I've seen it happen when I worked with a team of CEOs was who were working on a new project together. It was just as simple as, wow, this has helped us connect in profound ways. And from that place, our work just flows. Like this, it was a couple of hours over 3 days. This level of connection that we've reached just from doing a few hours with you has allowed 6 months of like really powerful work.
Yeah.
That's the best. Sometimes it is going to reveal like challenging tensions, things that we might not have even known were there.
Sure.
But even then it still seems like it's better to have that out in the open so that we can readjust and maybe make changes.
And what I'm thinking of right now is great sports teams, you hear them come off the pitch afterwards or whatever their sport is. I did that for my team. We've all got a connection on a deep level and they're all doing those things together. It's almost like these things are sort of accepted norms if you hear that from a professional sports team, or even probably, I can remember it from my own sporting life, various groups I've been in teams, and just there's such a connection with this group of people right now for the thing we're doing.
Right.
That is not a common thing in the workplace. Is my observation. And I wonder why that is.
Yeah, and I think we would benefit from it.
Yeah.
And the more we have purpose-driven organizations, there are attempts at that through defining the organization's purpose, but that also needs to be, everyone needs to be involved in that in some way.
Without the barriers and the hang-ups and the things that get in the way of people expressing what's true and so often with those kind of projects, they become top down. These are going to be the values of the company. This is the vision we are pursuing, but the we comes from a small group rather than the whole group.
Right. And if you can get people who align around something deeply meaningful, then watch out for that group. And I think of the All Blacks, like with the what?
Yes.
And they've actually done these practices, and some of them come from even indigenous cultures like that. But there's a history, there's an ancestry, and then there's a level of connection that I think if that can be done authentically, if it's done in a fake way, it's these practices do support the kind of at least the opportunity for these things to emerge. Like, is there actually something deeply meaningful between us? Like, maybe there isn't, and then maybe we should be doing different things. But maybe through going a bit deeper together, we actually realize, like, actually we're super aligned on this thing.
Or it can be about more than the group. It becomes about the performance of a business. It can become about shareholder value and creating, something that's got longevity and, a balance sheet to prove it, that all starts with a group of people connecting.
Exactly.
Yeah. There was one other thing I wanted to talk to you about, and it's a linked point actually, because companies are all out for shareholder value, and we've just talked about how that authentic connection can help create that All Blacks environment where everyone's in it and connected with the same energy and can make great things happen. But another tactic, which I know you've written about, has been about having authenticity and having kind of good business ethics. You've spoken about, integrity and truth-telling in leadership and in marketing. Could we sort of touch on that? Because it would be interesting to hear sort of the flip side. What happens when it goes wrong and people start to choose to tell untruths or misrepresent their business, possibly because they haven't got the team all firing in the same direction?
Right. I'm imagining like marketing that's like, I can see ways that companies can be successful by doing manipulative marketing but there's some sense of like the organization that's deeply purpose-driven and deeply connected in the long term, I just think is going to outcompete those things. Like when there's something that really captures people and connects people, like if that's at the heart of your organization, I would just put money on that every time.
Right. Just being more successful through that authenticity and that truth-telling.
Not to say that businesses can't be successful. We've got proof that businesses can be successful not going that route. And bringing more authenticity into your business straight away could lead to rocky things. Potentially, I would say in the long run, it's better to have those things out in the open. But I think the best businesses are ones where there's a passionate purpose and there's deep connectivity between the people who are working in alignment with that purpose. And that just feels a lot more resilient. And in the long run is going to not only do the most good in the world, but will be profitable.
Well, and your story is sort of testament to that, which is being drawn in the direction of creating deep human connections and creating something that's really successful. So
and I was thinking about this on the way here, because in some ways, like I like making good money. I like entrepreneurial spirit. I have the freedom not to just be motivated by that. So in some ways, like I would make decisions even if they might make less profit or something, because I'm doing it from a purpose point of view. But my experience is that if these things go well, then they're going to make profit.
Yes.
So even the decisions I make that aren't from a traditional profit making, they end up like giving things. Sometimes I want to give things away. I genuinely want to give things away free, not because it's a strategy.
Yes.
But like when I've done that, it's like, then you get a load back. People want to, so I can feel like the forces at play that, I mean, a lot of good business does realize these things and is already implementing these things around purpose and communication. But there's something about having these things right at the heart. And that's what we wanted to do with our organization. It's like, let's build this organization around this practice.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
let's see where it takes us. Like,
Yes.
we do need to pay the bills for sure. But we ended up making more money than we used to. And having this incredible lifestyle of going around the world and being on stages and working with amazing people and having our minds blown by the practice and humbled and challenged.
And so if you take the lessons from what you do and from what you teach, I suppose my last question for you is, what do we as a world community need to change at the moment in the way leadership happens, and what can we do to get it onto the right track?
Yeah, I mean, I don't claim to have the answers to that, but I know personally I'm just very inspired by authenticity, by genuine human connection that can be built in a way that lasts and creates love and respect, but also that how that connection can lead to us transforming as people. It seems like there's a win-win of like this connecting and transforming together, and that hopefully can like generate all kinds of things. Like creativity can come out of that is beyond the sum of the parts, as well as like how good it is just to be truthful and be connected.
That's a great answer, John. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being on the podcast. I've really enjoyed talking to you and hearing your story.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Whole Leader podcast. I hope today's conversation gave you something to reflect on, whether in how you lead, how you create, or how you show up. If you found this valuable, feel free to share it and subscribe for more episodes. And if you'd like to keep the dialogue going, you'll find more at richards.blog or connect with me on LinkedIn. Until next time, stay present, stay curious, and keep leading from the whole of who you are.